Hello again. This is part 2 of the mini lecture online for YouTube. We're going to be talking about a couple theories. The first one is empowerment theory. And the credit we're going to give to empowerment theory is from Judith A.B. Lee, who is a professor of social work at Florida Gulf Coast University and also a professor emerita at the University of Connecticut. Judith Lee has done extensive research in Guyana, South America, investigating the life of homeless people, resulting in changes in the country's policy towards the homeless. Now, her theory, she believes the central processes of this theory are developing individual potentialities and critical consciousness in the context of relationship through consciousness raising and praxis, strengthening and individual capacities, problem-solving skills, building group collectivity, community, and taking action against oppressive conditions. So what does that mean? Well, she's looking at developing individuals' potential and awareness, not just awareness, but critical consciousness of relationships, looking at action, strengthening capacity, problem-solving skills, and that would be more on a micro level, but she's also looking at groups, collectivity, and community, so meso and macro level, and not just, again, awareness, but taking action to change those oppressive conditions. One of the things that she had developed in this theory was the idea of power blocks as being impediments to the experience of power, and that these power blocks can be indirect, stemming from the way a person was socialized, how they grew up, what they believe, or they can be direct barriers imposed by social institutions, so more of a macro level power blocks. And that the way that people can be empowered, and the definition, I guess, according to Judith Lee, would be empowerment is a process by which people gain power, access to resources, and control over their lives. It enhances personal and societal well-being, and critical consciousness is the first step towards empowerment. She sees power as the ability to access and control resources and people. And within empowerment theory, power is seen as limitless. Now, powerlessness is the inability to function effectively in the valued social roles. Here's some other definitions to be aware of. Stratification. You probably have learned this in some previous classes, but it's a hierarchical manner in which groups are differentiated from one to another so that some are more valued than other groups. Oppression. Systematic enactment of discrimination that prevents people from obtaining access to scarce and valuable resources. And we'll talk about this more in class. I also included in your PowerPoint a multifocal assessment. And so if we're looking at empowerment and we're looking at trying to help people have a critical consciousness, and we're trying to assess where people are at, using a multi-focus in our assessment is important. One of the first things that we are looking at is history. Again, a historical view of that person's oppression. We're also going to be looking at an ecological view, which encompasses the knowledge of the individual's adaptive potential as well as systematic power abuses, so where they're coming from. An eth-class perspective. Well, what does eth-class mean? Well, we're looking at ethnicity and class together with a focus on racism and classism and their interplay. A cultural and a multicultural perspective, with an emphasis on client cultural norms and expectations. How do they see the world? What does their cultural lens look like? What is their functioning and their expectations in life? We also would want to include a feminist perspective, which highlights the particular oppression of women in that particular group and also conceptualizes phenomena in a different voice. You remember Gilligan's theory, right? Also, a larger picture, global perspective that focuses on the worker and the global interdependence, as well as social and economic injustice. And then a critical perspective is needed to critique all forms of oppression and develop strategies that link the individual and social change. It sounds complicated? Well, maybe this list looks a little complicated, but really it's, again, that critical thinking, the critical consciousness, looking at the whole picture, which we've been practicing all through this class. Now, practice skills. What do we need to be efficient and skilled in when we're looking at empowerment? I have 8 principles on the next slide. The first one is that all oppression is destructive of life and should be challenged by social workers and clients. The social worker should maintain a holistic vision in situations of oppression, just talked about that, that people empower themselves, and social workers should assist. But people know their lives better than us. People are experts of themselves and their families. And as a helper coming in, we want to look for those strengths, encourage them, and help strengthen them in those areas. But they're the ones who are doing the empowering of themselves. We're helping. People who share common ground need each other to attain empowerment. Social workers should establish a mutual and reciprocal relationship with clients. Social workers should encourage the client to say, in their own words, their experience. The worker should maintain a focus on the person as the victor and not the victim. Even by just that one little thing, looking at them and believing in them, seeing them with hope, can impact the way a client is viewing themselves. And lastly, the social workers should maintain a social change focus. And so we're looking at empowerment as, yes, the client is the one who's doing being empowered and doing the work, but we're here to help and to help them see their strengths and build upon those strengths. Next, we're going to be talking about feminist standpoint theory. And in the PowerPoint, I'm giving credit to Dr. Sandra Harding. Sandra Harding is a philosopher of feminist theory and research methodology and philosophy of science. She contributed to standpoint theory and to the multicultural study of science. Her groundbreaking work in The Science Question of Feminism in 1986 and Whose Science, Whose Knowledge in 91 made these books classics in the philosophy of science. A professor at UCLA, she directed the UCLA Center for Study of Women for almost 5 years, previously taught at the University of Delaware for many years, and earned her PhD at from New York University. She's lectured at over 200 universities and conferences around the world, and currently co-edits Signs, a journal for women in culture and society, one of the most prestigious journals in women's studies. So we're going to talk about her feminist standpoint theory. It's pretty basic, and it's that standpoints are truths or knowledge that created through the awareness of reality gleaned from particular social locations. The concept of standpoint assumes that all people see the world from the place that they are situated socioculturally. What is considered to be real depends on one's standpoint and is grounded in experience related to one's position. So where a person is standing, and if you think about the social constructivism, if you're the squirrel looking at the tree, your standpoint is from this position. If you're the person looking at this tree, your standpoint is from this position. If you're from the air, your standpoint is from this position. So her theory is just acknowledging that there are different viewpoints, even within feminist views, that depending on your geographical location, your social location, your cultural location, things may look different.